Are you tired of the same old dating scene in your local area? Do dating apps leave you more frustrated than fulfilled? And what about those magical travel romances? Why do they seem to happen so effortlessly? What if I told you the secret to falling in love is off the apps and into the wide expanse of the world? This month, we're bringing you our Passport to Love series, an exciting collection of stories from around the globe where travelers found love in the most unexpected places. Stay tuned. Love and adventure awaits. Hi, I'm Kelly Tolliday, founder of Transform with Travel, and your trusted guide to life-changing adventures. Here, we help you dream big, plan smarter, and embark on your next journey without stress or overwhelm. This isn't just about booking trips. It's about reimagining what's possible for yourself, one adventure at a time. Today, we're bringing you one step closer to your greatest travel dreams. So buckle up because we are about to take off. Hello, everyone. I am joined today by Adrianna Nuñez, who is a travel designer and the founder of The Modern Traveler. And we are closing out the Passport to Love series today, where we've shared stories the whole month of February of travelers who fell in love while exploring the world. And if you haven't listened to all 6 stories yet, I highly recommend adding them to your queue. We wanted to close out the series with an episode that is jam-packed with value, all about how to create your ultimate honeymoon, romantic getaway, a trip away from the kids, you name it. Adrianna is the expert of creating unforgettable romantic experiences for her clients. And we are just going to jump straight into it. You ready?
I'm ready. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. Yes. Thanks so much for being here. So, you have been traveling full time with your partner for 2 years now, which is absolutely amazing. You have a lot of experience in creating experiences just for you two as well. I'd love to hear your framework when helping a couple get clarity on what they want from their honeymoon or their romantic getaway. Like, what's initially your first step? And is this actually your first step to your own personal travel?
Yeah, it actually is my first step to our own personal travel. The thing that I tell clients to start with is to sit down and chat with each other first. And I know that sounds so basic, but you'll be amazed at how many couples don't actually sit down together and be like, what is it that you want from this honeymoon? What is it that you want from this romantic vacay? And like think through their non-negotiables. So I talk about non-negotiables a lot in my business, and it's really non-negotiables separately and non-negotiables together. So come up with your 4 or 5 top things that you need out of this trip. So it could be that you really want a private boat tour, but he really wants to go see the Louvre, and write those out, and then together come up with what are our top 3 then non-negotiables. The other thing that I tell clients, and my partner and I also do, is come up with our investment. Start to kind of poke around and see what are the costs of the hotels that we ideally want to stay at, like where we've been looking on Instagram, where we've been seeing them on TikTok. How much do those really cost? And then kind of go from there and build out like our budget for this trip. So those would be my top 2 first steps in building out your dream trip.
Yeah, that's super helpful, especially on the budget piece, because I find as a travel advisor, and both you and I are advisors powered by Fora as well. So shout out to Fora. Oftentimes you ask clients, what's your budget? And oftentimes you're met with, I don't know. And it's kind of like, well, we could go on the beach for $8 in Thailand, or we could go $1,000 a night at a 5-star hotel in Scotland. So it is very smart, I think, to take a look, especially it's seasonal. You specialize in Italy, France, and Greece. That is wildly seasonal for Greece, especially. So oftentimes people don't know what they want to spend, but they know what they definitely don't feel comfortable spending in terms of like a limit. So that's something that's always helpful too, is kind of coming up with those parameters. And so oftentimes I've heard you emphasize the importance of early planning when it comes to honeymoons and romantic trips. How does getting a head start really elevate that experience for couples?
Honestly, it's options. It's giving you options. People don't realize, and like, why would you realize? Well, you and I are in the industry, so we're looking at hotel prices, hotel bookings every single day. We're looking at what experiences are available at certain times all the time. But the average person is not checking that stuff. So what it's giving you to plan early are options. So the best room categories. If you're going to Italy for your honeymoon and you wait 2 months before to start the planning, that honeymoon suite is going to be gone. Or if you're wanting to go to a boutique hotel that only has 50 rooms, you're really limited on what room option you're getting. So that's one part. And then rates are going to be better the earlier you plan. Private drivers and guides are going to be more readily available the earlier you plan. And that might not seem like an important thing, but you want the best guides. You want a driver available for you in certain destinations. And if they were booked out a year ago, you don't have really many options anymore. So really that's one piece of it. And also, if you are tighter in your investment and you're not willing to drop 20 grand right away, being able to plan early means that you have some time to put money towards that investment. And when you work with someone like you or I, we can help you with making payment plans for things like that. So there's a few different things of how that elevates it. But for me, it's just giving you options. The more options, the better to choose to make it exactly what kind of a trip that you want it to be.
Yeah, for sure. That savings piece is massive. I haven't actually thought about that in terms of working with someone like you or myself. We can actually say, hey, as a whole, your trip is probably going to cost around this much. And then they can say, okay, I've got 8 months to save for that. And it gets a little bit more motivation to get into that savings fund. That's good
Yeah,
advice.
it does.
We'll get back to the show in just a moment. I want to take a quick moment to share with you a case where Arch Roamright Travel Insurance helps save the day. Imagine planning the trip of a lifetime, a grand European tour with everything booked and ready to go. For one couple, their dream trip came with a hefty price tag of over $20,000 in non refundable deposits. But just days before departure, an unexpected turn. The wife was diagnosed with a fungal infection and advised by her doctor against traveling. Suddenly, their excitement turned to worry, faced with the prospect of missing their well planned vacation and losing thousands of dollars. Fortunately, their travel advisor had recommended Arch Roamright Travel Insurance at the time of booking. When they needed it most, the coverage was there. They filed a claim, and within 9 business days, Arch Roamright responded, reimbursing the couple for their prepaid, non refundable deposits. The couple said, I'm amazed at how quickly and efficiently Arch Roamright refunded the money. This story underscores a powerful message. Unforeseen events don't have to spell disaster. In this case, the $1,800 invested in travel insurance offered significant protection, covering $20,561 in non refundable trip expenses that might have otherwise been forfeited. With Arch Roamright Travel Insurance, travelers are better prepared. Don't wait. Protect your travel today. Join the many travelers who trust Arch Roamright and make your next trip a little smoother. Head to the show notes to find and use my personal affiliate link to get a quote today. Thanks to Arch Roamright for supporting our show. And so you've described some of your travel experiences that you've had personally as surreal experiences, like seeing the Grand Canal in Venice or the White Nights in Estonia. How can couples create those unforgettable, magical moments in their own journeys? Why do you think that's so important to have those surreal moments while you're traveling?
I mean, that's the beauty of travel, right? Is the unexpected, the unplanned. I definitely recommend to clients or to anyone I'm talking about travel with is don't overpack your itinerary so that you can stumble on those things. Like for me, for example, in Venice, I was there for my first time. I've been there 3 times. My first time, I accidentally stumbled on the Peggy Guggenheim Museum. Like, who accidentally stumbles on like the Peggy Guggenheim? It's really well known. But I wasn't a travel designer then. I hadn't planned this trip at all. And so I just randomly stumbled on it. And it's those types of experiences, those types of unplanned moments that really make an elevated trip, that really make those are the things that you're going to remember, not just every single thing that you've pre-planned. So I really like to encourage couples that I work with to leave space, leave room in their itinerary for those beautiful moments and those beautiful moments together, just the sitting on your terrace at a villa and just sipping wine together. You don't have to be doing something all hours of the day to have an amazing time in the place that you're visiting.
Yeah, and I do feel like Instagram culture, social media culture has exacerbated that. Like you need to be doing and seeing and posting. And if you didn't do these 3 things in Italy, then you did it wrong type of thing. So I think working with someone like yourself, it almost feels like you're coaching on how to slow down, which I know you talk about how slowing down is part of the honeymoon or the romantic getaway and just being together and reconnecting. And yeah, as you're talking about that, sitting on the terrace in Italy having a cup of coffee, it's like, wow, I can feel that, how good that would be for my husband and I, and not having every hour of the day planned. I think that's a really important piece.
Absolutely.
Speaking of slowing down and valuing slowing down during romantic getaways, why do you think taking a more relaxed pace can create a deeper connection between couples? How do you incorporate that into your travel designs?
Yeah, I'm a huge, huge proponent of slow travel. I've talked about this a lot. It became really popular after like 2020 and after. I think we all realized the value of slowing down, taking in those small moments. The biggest reason for this is it allows you to be present. We're always on our phones, we're on our laptop. My partner and I, for example, we both are entrepreneurs. We're both on our laptops 24/7 working, and we have made for our trips, we do these love trips where we spend like a quarter, we do a trip together and we're off our phones. Like we don't do any social media, anything like that. So I really think that why this is important for couples to think about is just to be able to discover days together, be with each other and enjoy those, having, like I said, like having those moments on the terrace, having a cup of coffee, not getting up immediately in the morning and going and on a tour, like just slowing the pace. We all need to kind of take some time to slow the pace.
Yeah, and part of the research that I looked at when I was researching for the first episode of this series, which is about the science behind why love and romance get sparked so much in travel, is because you are in that more relaxed pace, you are more relaxed, and so more of you comes out. There's less of that stress
Absolutely.
response and more of that relaxation response, which means you're more authentically yourself and you can respond to life rather than react to it. And I think that's what a lot of couples need right now, is more responding to each other rather than just reacting to each other, especially parents. If you're planning a kid-free romantic getaway for them, you become such a transactional relationship. Did you change the diaper? Can you pick up this? Did you drop off at school? Can you make the doctor's appointment? And so to go from a transactional relationship, I guess really you came from a connection to then transactional to then being able to connect again on these trips. So that's a very powerful point.
I really encourage, if you can take, 2 weeks instead of a week, it really gives you more time to be able to, because I have found for myself that it can be really hard to switch off in those first few days. Like the first few days is just learning how to switch off. So when you have a little bit of a longer lead time, you're really slowing the pace down. It gives you that time to turn off and to let the relaxation come in, to start to feel creative again, to start to feel inspired again. And that's going to come back once you leave the honeymoon, once you leave the romantic getaway. You're going to come home and just be a very refreshed, recharged person.
I love that you mentioned the first couple days because there's actually science behind that. It's called the 3-day effect.
Mm.
Michael Easter talks about it in his book, The Comfort Crisis. I've mentioned it probably in every episode of this podcast. But it's actually, the science says that it does take 3 days, ideally in some sort of natural setting. So you're camping or you're hiking or you're just like out of the city.
Yeah.
But it takes 3 days for your body, your biological markers for stress to go down. So like you said, the longer that you can stay out on your travels with your partner, the more you're actually able to get into day 5, day 6, day 7, where it's like,
Yep.
oh, this is who I am again.
Yep.
And we all have personal anecdotes of that. Like you go on a weekend away and you have to come back by Sunday and you're like, wait, I'm still not relaxed. I don't understand.
It's a very different experience. I personally don't love weekend getaways. I don't think they help me at all, but for some people it does. But it is a science behind, there is the science behind that.
Yeah, it's kind of like take what you can get, but also knowing maybe that's something that you work towards. Maybe in 2 years, you can plan to take that much PTO and that much budget and all of that. So definitely something to think about. I know that you've worked with a couple who tried to fit in a Michelin star dinner every night while in Southern Italy. I want to hear that story of like what was going through your mind as a travel advisor. And then also to follow up with that, like what are some common mistakes or over ambitious plans that you see couples making? How do you help them kind of avoid that travel burnout?
Yeah. So this particular couple, loved working with this couple. Most of the couples that I work with aren't new to travel. So it's not that people needed support because they've never traveled before. It's that they just need someone to help guide them. So for my services, my full service, I often offer the ability to book their dining options. Now, this couple were foodies and they wanted to be able to book it themselves, which is absolutely, they're able to do that. And then they send me which places they've booked so that I can include it in their itinerary. They decided that they wanted Michelin star every single night. So they mapped out their Michelin star dinner, and I didn't let them know ahead of time that you're going to be eating a lot when you're in Italy. You're going to be tired after a full day. You might not want to do an extensive, long, hearty meal every single night. So they attempted, they tried. And then as soon as they came back and we did our follow-up call after their trip, they were like, yeah, you were right. It was too much for us. We got tired of the food. We were not even hungry by lunchtime because or by dinner time because we'd had a big lunch. It was too much. And then they realized they were missing some of the little hole in the wall spots. They were missing they stumbled on one for lunch that was around the corner from the hotel we'd booked for them. And they were like, this was the highlight for them. And they realized that some of the Michelin star options weren't actually as amazing as they thought they were going to be. So they had wished they had done 2 instead of 7. My advice for that is to not overbook when you are planning, which I've already said, but for dining experiences, I always recommend booking dining for your first night in each city that you're going to. So let's say you're going to 3 cities in Italy during this 2-week trip, booking your first night, because when you've been traveling all day, you're exhausted. You want something ready for you to go. You want to just eat at your hotel. Book that and then leave everything else to chance. Unless there's a restaurant that you're dying to go to that gets booked up, book those first and then leave some room, some exploration, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I actually have a very recent example of this. I had a group of 10 down in Peru. They had a reservation booking at 7:30. They had spent the entire day. They did yoga. They did a traditional Andean ceremony. They had an outdoor picnic. They got back to the hotel. They had a massage and they were like, "We're exhausted and we have to wake up at 5 a.m. the next morning for Machu Picchu." They're like, I don't think we can make it to this reservation. Luckily, we were able to cancel it, but it's like not having to have everything planned is a key piece. And we talked about this at the very beginning, giving yourself that space to stumble upon a trattoria or Nana's kitchen in the middle of the square in Greece. Those are some of those magical moments. And yeah, researching and having advisors like ourselves to help point you in the right direction is great. But the magic of travel is finding those little gems on your own too. So I think that's
Yeah, absolutely.
definitely
And to answer the second part of your question about like other mistakes that I've seen, and
yes,
you don't know what you don't know. So I always look at it's not necessarily a mistake, it's just you didn't know. But one of the things I see that some people don't realize is just how big countries are. So Italy may seem small when you're looking at it on a map, but it's like kind of the length of California. And sure, you could drive it in a day, but you're not really seeing anything when you're driving in a day. So I do find that a lot of clients that come to me, we have to talk through regions instead of like, I want to go up and down Italy and 10 days, you're just not going to be able to see it all. So I try to go regionally with them, where we do maybe northern Italy for the trip and then go down to central Italy or just stay in southern Italy. So I think just kind of seeing more regional where you want to visit versus let's see the whole country, because you can't experience a country in one visit. I'm a big
for
proponent
sure.
of going to destinations over again. I prefer that. So you're going to be able to go back again and maybe see a different part.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're planning a romantic getaway for couples who have very different travel styles, that can be very tricky. And I know sometimes for me and my husband, he's more bougie. He's like, I want to sit at the Four Seasons and sit at the pool all day. And I'm like, but I want to do the zip line and then I want to go surfing and then I want to do like it's hard sometimes to like manage the two different personalities, maybe different budgets. I've definitely talked to clients where the wife is like nothing over $4,000 and the husband's like, meh, maybe like 15,000. You're like, that's a big range. What are we working with? And that goes back to your very first point about having honest conversations with each other. But what is your advice for couples who need to strike that balance, or when one person ends up planning the entire trip? What's your advice for that?
So, my hot take in this area is that it's okay to have solo time when you're traveling as a couple. I think a lot of people are afraid they're like, it's a honeymoon. This is a romantic getaway. We should be together the whole time. And you don't have to. Like, you don't, I wouldn't say take maybe the full day apart. But for example, I've had my partner and I do this, but I've also had couples who do this. I'm an early riser, so I like to be up. I'm jet lagged. I'm up at 4 or 5 in the morning, and I will get up and go wander the city on my own, explore, get photos, get coffee, come back, and my partner's still asleep, and he wakes up around 10, and then we get up and do things together. And like that's okay. We've discussed this, we've done this several times, and we've realized like this is the way we like to travel. For other couples, maybe it's one partner really loves to shop and wants to go to the markets in the afternoon, or we set up an experience for them to be able to have a private designer to take, like a private shopper, take them around. And then the other partner wants to go to a museum for the afternoon. And like we kind of schedule that in so that they both have an experience around the same time. And then they meet up for dinner. So I think it's okay for couples to not want to do the same things and want a little bit different of an experience. And we, like, as a travel designer, I'm able to build that in for them and help them, kind of like what you said earlier. It's like therapy and coaching at the same time. Like you're helping them know that that's okay. And that process happens all the time because not everyone travels the same. In terms of one partner traveling over the other, plug here, work with a travel designer, work with the travel advisor, because that way, not one partner is feeling like the whole trip is on them. I've had a couple who that happened where she was doing all the planning and she just realized like it was too much and she was feeling pressure to make the experience amazing for him and her, and that pressure was just getting to her. So they hired me on, and then when they came back from the trip, they were like, this was just the best experience because we both felt like we were getting what we wanted, and neither of us came back feeling like, oh, you didn't book this for me, why didn't you put this in, or why did we have to do this. It was a very collaborative experience, and it was a very shared experience for them where neither felt the pressure to manage it all.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I feel like you're almost that third party buffer between the two of them. So it's not like, oh, you picked this, like, why? Or you picked this and it was great, but or as the partner who picked it, I know for me, my husband handles accommodation, I handle excursions, so we blend well together. But on the excursion piece, that's like a heavy responsibility. We know this as advisors, and I'll just be kind of like looking over, like, oh, are you happy? Is this fun? Are you having fun?
You
Going on,
feel the pressure of, like, making it good for
right,
them too, and it's a lot of
right.
pressure.
It is, and then that way yeah, like you mentioned, it is almost like a therapy slash coach slash, like, education on the travel options that you have, but the solo time is so important. My husband and I, we've traveled abroad for, a year at a time, and towards the end of it, I'm like, "I'm gonna go get a massage. Do you have" it's in Bali, like, "Do you have $20 for cash for me to go get a massage?" He's like, "Here's 40, go get a 2-hour massage." Like, go
Do your
spend the
thing.
whole day. Is it a day spa? Do you wanna go spend the whole day? It's important to like make sure you have those parts of yourself that are separate. And who knows, you can meet someone at the yoga studio that you never would have met had you just hung back with your husband. And then they had great recommendations for you to go do something that is completely different. So I think that's a really great piece, especially when you're going on honeymoons that are 5+ days long. If you're not spending all day with each other at home, what makes you think you're gonna be like happy to spend all day with each other? Either way, you need some space.
And especially with honeymoons is I find couples are just they're burnt out from the wedding planning, especially if they do a honeymoon right after the wedding, which I have
Right.
found a trend actually going the last couple years is more and more couples are waiting to have their honeymoon. So I've actually had 3 couples recently that I've chatted with who are doing a 1-year anniversary trip. They didn't do a honeymoon. They are waited to do a 1-year anniversary slash honeymoon trip. And it is because that pressure. They've already invested so much in the wedding. They spent so much time. They've been around family. They're tired. The idea of trying to plan a 2-3 weeks to Europe or wherever they're wanting to go for their honeymoon is a lot. And so taking a pause and waiting is one way to do it. But either way, if you're doing your honeymoon right after the wedding, you're exhausted and having a little solo
Yeah.
time might be nice. Just going to get a massage. Yeah.
I've actually seen that as well. And a part of it, what I've heard from clients is that they want to take more PTO around the wedding so that they don't burn out. They want to take the week before and the week after, not even because it's a destination wedding, just because they know that they need it. Now they don't have as much PTO and now they need to wait another year to go on the trip that
Yeah.
they want to take. They just don't want to just take a 3-day trip because that's all they have. So that's a really interesting trend. And I think it's something that is important for couples that are listening, whether it's a honeymoon, an anniversary, a destination wedding, whatever, is you can do it your own way. Like it has to feel good for you. And if this is a really special trip and it's a once in a lifetime trip for you, do it any way that you need to. Is it 2 years after your wedding? Go for it.
Yep. And you can call it whatever you want. You can call it a honeymoon, you can call it an anniversary. I've seen some
Right.
people who really hate the idea of calling it a honeymoon if it's a year after. I'm like, it's your honeymoon. Like, call it what it is. So
Right.
there
Exactly.
is no parameters. There's no, it must be this way for your travel.
Absolutely. And so you specialize in Italy, Greece, and France, and there are iconic destinations for couples for romantic getaways, but you love to explore beyond the obvious, like going beyond Rome, beyond Florence, Paris, Santorini, etc. Can you share some hidden gems or underrated places that you love, love, love sending clients to in these highly sought after destinations?
Yeah, there are so many different options. I'll start with Italy. So I definitely feel that people should go to the top destinations. I will always, always tell people go to Florence, go to Venice. I love them. But if you are someone who likes a little bit more off the beaten path, or maybe you've been to Italy before and you've already done Florence, you've already done Venice, you've already done Rome, and you want to see what else is out there. In Italy, the region of Puglia is very popular right now. So it actually has become, it used to be the spot where it very much was a hidden gem. Not so much anymore, but there's so many parts of Puglia that you can see. So there's different towns within it that you can visit. So I like to send clients there. In Tuscany, so more central Italy, I really love the tiny town of Cortona. If you've seen the movie Under the Tuscan Sun, which is one of my favorites, where she goes, she gets a divorce, she goes to Italy, buys a house. Cortona is that town. So that's where where that movie took place. So I really love that area. In Greece, you can bypass the common islands like Mykonos and Santorini and go to like Milos or Paros. Those are really popular now. Or even away from that region as a whole. I was recently, I think it was about 2 years ago, I went to the island of Lefkada, which is on the west coast of Greece. Highly, highly recommend if you want to be away from people. It is not a popular tourist destination, but you still get that really amazing Greece experience. And you don't have to take a ferry because it's accessible on the mainland. So you can drive from Athens to visit. And I know that ferries get very crazy in the summer. So a lot of people want to avoid ferries if possible. And then with France, I don't have a specific destination that's more hidden. With France, what I love to recommend to clients, and I was just recently doing a proposal for a client for Southern France, is finding those boutique hidden gems out in the countryside. So really getting that like quintessential French experience. It could be anywhere really, and just being open to maybe something a little bit slower, a little more intimate. Because I know we see that all over Instagram, we see it all over TikTok, and that's the kind of experience I really love with France is leaving the busy city areas and doing something more like that.
Yeah, I'm thinking when you say that, have you seen the book retreats where it's just women who like rent a
Yes,
castle and they just sit and read for 3 days straight? I'm like, that's
yes,
out like
I
sign me up.
love
I'm in.
that. Yeah, I'm there. Please. The thing I hear from clients, and along with their whole list of stuff they want to see, is I just really want to relax. And you kind of have to decide, what does that mean to you? Is that really being remote and not accessible to any of the cities and just relaxing and enjoying your time? Is it a one day that you're spending on the beach and not having any activities planned? Like, what does relaxation look like to you? What does it feel like to you? That's what we do in our job as travel advisors, is really kind of getting into the nitty-gritty with our clients of like, what does this actually mean when you say I want to relax? And it's different for everyone. Everyone has a different idea of what that looks like.
And some people don't even know. Some people don't
Right.
know like
And that's
what
what we're that's
relaxation is,
yes,
that's what
and
we're here
that's what
for.
we're here for.
Yeah.
It's why we're asking the questions, and we're kind of painting the picture of what that could look like. And if you hear that, me talking about the French countryside chateau where you're sitting in farm to table dining every day and you're not really going anywhere, you just get to sit at the pool for the afternoon, and that can bring up some feelings for people where like, that's what I want. That is what I'm excited about.
I've been running retreats now for almost 8 years, and it's interesting because people say, "I want that," and then we had a countryside retreat center in Portugal that we went to, and we purposely the name of the retreat was The Art of Slowing Down. We purposely left, like, full afternoons of nothing to do until 6 p.m., and people were like, "So, what's on the agenda?" And we're like, "Nothing." Like, you can go horseback riding if you want, you can lay by the pool, you can read, there's things to do on property, but there's nothing organized for us right now. That's on purpose. And you could tell people were getting a little jittery, like days 1, 2, 3, definitely getting, a little high strung. Like, what I need an agenda. I need somewhere to be. And so there's part of that unlearning too of how to relax, and having somebody like you in your corner saying, I have the perfect space for you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate those alternatives. And I also really appreciate, Adriana, how you say still go see the spots, right? They are hot spots for a reason. They are popular for a reason. Go see it, but maybe instead of 4 days in Florence, you could do 2 and then jet off to Tuscany and
Mhm.
go have a beautiful time in the countryside there. So I think that's a really like grounded approach to answering a lot of people's wants without being like, no, just don't go to Florence. That's
Yeah.
silly.
I
Like
will
it's a really great way.
I will never say don't go to a tourist spot. And I know that's a lot of the marketing out there, a lot of the messaging is out there is like, oh, it's overrated. The Duomo's overrated. Like, don't, the Colosseum, you shouldn't even visit. Like, no, these are, like you said, these are iconic for a reason. I get why you want to go see it. I've gone to see them. But then what else is out there? Like, what else, what other experience can you do outside of that? And that's why I really like making the itinerary a mix of all of it, adding in pieces of each thing. Now, overpacking, obviously, no, but trying to add in a mix of everything is ideal.
And what's your one piece of advice you'd give to couples planning their ultimate romantic getaway? Like, if you just had one parting message for people listening right now, what would be that piece of advice that you'd give to ensure that their trip is less about checking off boxes and more about reconnecting and celebrating their relationship? What would that be?
I would say that together, think about the one thing, whether it's a view or a meal or an experience or a destination that you'd regret not seeing, doing, experiencing when you came back home without it. Like, if you did not get that experience, what would you regret? And make that your priority. Like, start there, build out around that. So if it is that you desperately want to see the Colosseum, or you desperately want a private boat ride for a day in the Amalfi Coast. If you didn't get to experience that and you'd come home and that would just have ruined your trip, prioritize that and just choose one or two together as a couple. Don't try to make it individual. Choose the two things that are important to you. Two, that would be my advice.
Oh, I love that. Planning around the core experience
Yeah.
that you wanna have.
Yeah.
That simplifies it so
It
much.
does,
I
it
love
does
that.
simplify it. There's so much noise in travel. There's so much, "You must do this," the pressure, you talked about this earlier. You have to do and see and experience everything in order to have really experienced that destination, and it's just not true. It's the goal of my work as a travel designer is to help couples realize that the trip planning can be their way. The experience is what they see and do is theirs. This is their trip. And it doesn't have to be based off of itinerary they saw on a blog. It doesn't have to be based off of a content creator's reel that went viral. It can just be theirs. And that's the magic of travel.
It's beautiful. How can people connect with you, Adriana, if they are interested in planning a trip with you or just following she's amazing on social media, everyone. Please go follow her. How can people find you?
Instagram is where I'm at. I also have a website where you can see a bit more about my services. I have a very refined set of services, so I'm very particular about the types of trips that I plan. Like you said earlier, I only plan for Italy, France, and Greece. I very much niche down because I really like to fully know the destinations that I'm planning. So if those are countries that interest you, definitely find me on Instagram or on my website.
And it's at The Modern Traveler, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining. I hope everyone can walk away with some action items to plan your next romantic getaway, whether it's a honeymoon, whether it's a destination wedding, whether it's a trip away from the kids. You have all the tools that you need to start planning. And if you get overwhelmed, you have someone like Adriana to be able to help you. And that's a wrap for today's episode. A huge thank you to our amazing sponsor, And Beyond, for supporting the Passport to Love series. If you're dreaming of a unique honeymoon, a romantic getaway, or even a destination wedding, And Beyond has been creating transformative experiences for over 30 years across Africa, Asia, South America, and beyond. Visit andbeyond.com for more information and stay tuned for the next episode in our Passport to Love series.